This is FE Peer Review. The date is October 24th, 2021. Benidorm to Playa de San Juan. Critical analysis of a long-distance observation done by Howard George Stirrup. We will pause here for a moment. You may read it if you wish. I will continue. Howard, I saw your debate with Mr. Sensible. You spent some time complaining about people not being nice. I understood and appreciated that. It made me think of Nathan Oakley and the Hitler apologist Eric Dubé. I hope they will take heed to your words, though I doubt it. Anyhow, nice is nice, but honesty is what we really need more of, and I'll come back to that at the end of this video. Along the way, you also mentioned a long-distance view you had done from Benidorm. I decided to take a look into that, and I'm sharing my results with you here now. I'll summarize the problems and then get into the details. The biggest problem is that you have very poorly documented your actual observation. This makes it very difficult to draw conclusions from it, and yet you have concluded that you should not be able to see the distant lights, but you do. So in your mind, this strongly puts into question the standard globe model. The second big problem here is that your poor documentation means that you really can't demonstrate with any force or rigor that we really do see too far. Consequently, you won't be able to convince thoughtful people of your hypothesis. The third problem is that the poor documentation hides the reality that we don't actually see too far. The poor documentation makes it easy for you to succumb to confirmation bias and see what it is you are hoping to see. I'll show you now. I'm not just going to make a bunch of unsupported assertions. I'll show you what you could have done to document your observation more rigorously so that you could draw substantial data from it. And I'll show you that if you had done it, you would have had to face the reality that what you see in no way conflicts with the standard globe model. When I say you have not documented your observation well, I'm not being mean. I'm being honest. Here's why I say it. All I was able to find on your channel was the snippet of video we're about to see, and that was despite doing several keyword searches through your videos. So if you have more information than this, it is not readily found on your channel. On that basis, I'm doing this critical analysis of your observation based on the information I am able to find. If you've got more information than this, you need to do a better job at making it available. Now we'll take a look at that snippet of your video.
We asked people to compare evidence. I even offered money for people to prove me wrong with evidence. Yeah? Let me just say this before I go. I've got a video on Benidorm Beach where I'm looking underneath the cable ski platform, which is 50 centimeters off the sea level.
Cool.
And I'm looking underneath the platform at streetlights 20 miles away. This is on many of my videos on my YouTube channel.
And
everyone that comes to Benidorm,
did you measure the lapse rate, Howard? Did you measure the lapse rate?
Excuse me, Michael, before you ask me a question, let me finish telling you about it.
Everybody that can't tell when you're done. It just keeps going.
Everybody that goes to Benidorm can see San Juan Beach 20 miles away. They can see it in the daytime. They can see the street lights along the beachfront at nighttime. Nobody's been able to prove me wrong in 3 years that I offered 10 grand.
To be clear, when I say this is the only snippet that's available, what I mean is there's plenty of video of you talking about this with other people, but in terms of actual observation and documentation of the observation, this is all I was able to find. So I'll start with a small thing. Maybe this is nitpicking. I don't know if it was just a slip of the tongue when you were talking to MC Toon, or whether it is an actual mistake in your mind about what you're looking at. But if we look at that cable ski platform there, about 17 seconds into the video, you say, and I'm quoting, "I've got a video on Benidorm Beach where I am looking underneath the cable ski platform, which is 50 centimeters off the sea level." That platform, as we see it in this photo here, which is a screenshot from your video, we've got the information down here to show that, is not 50 centimeters off the sea level. That platform is at least 3 meters off the sea level. We see under it clearly. We can see that the little pergola structure up on top, which people can stand under on the platform, is about the same height as the space under the platform. So I'm gonna guess, without access to better measurements, which you could have provided, I'm going to say that that's probably a good 3 meters or maybe close to 4. It's somewhere between 3 and 4 meters. So you're undermining your case when you don't document stuff like that and then say things like the platform, which is, quote, which is 50 centimeters off the sea level. So small thing, but an important thing. The little details do matter. Now, if it was just a slip of the tongue and you meant to say something else to MC Toon, and you know, in the heat of the discussion, that's fine. Now, that's totally understandable. In that case, it would be appropriate to issue a correction statement to say, hey, I was talking with MC Toon. I had a slip of the tongue. I said 50 centimeters. It's actually more like 3.5 meters or whatever, 350 centimeters, you know, whatever. Anyway, details matter. And that's the real key here. Details all throughout are missing. Let's look at a few of these screenshots here. Now, this one, we're looking underneath the platform, and off to the far right, we see a tower lit up. We see 2 peaks, and then we see some smaller peaks in the distance. You've said repeatedly that we're seeing the Playa San Juan, but you really provided us with no way of confirming that, and I'm going to show you what I mean by that. These are screenshots from your video. There's the tower lit up, and there's a taller tower over here. These were useful landmarks to me in trying to figure out where you were when you did this video. Now, that there is the first problem. I should not have had any doubt in my mind where you were when you made this video. You should have documented it in such a way that there was no ambiguity about your location, the direction you were looking, the height you were at, and the thing you were looking at. So here is the best I was able to find from your video to identify your location. And I believe I found pretty near the right spot. Now, I say pretty near, but unfortunately, when I looked at this in Google Earth, pretty near isn't very good for your purposes, because you might have been down low to the beach, you might have been up on the street. It's really hard to say what your elevation is. I will say this in terms of your elevation. If we look in the bottom left corner, it's more apparent in the actual moving video, but I need to use the screenshots. We see rocks. These are rocks, and the waves are coming in and splashing up, and that we can see them in your field of view means that you are several meters back from the water's edge. These rocks are above the water, and you're standing on top of them. I don't know how tall you are, but you look like you're probably about 6 feet tall. So I'm going to say that your eye height is pretty close to 6 feet. You're standing several meters back from the water's edge, and you're standing somewhat above the water. So I'm going to have to hazard a guess that your eye level is probably about 2 meters or 6 foot 8 inches to 7 feet off above the water minimum. And that's if you're standing quite close to the water. Now, given the surroundings, you could well be standing up another foot or two, which would put your eye level at 10 feet. And these details matter when it comes to an observation like this. So you should have documented them. To not document them is to hide from yourself the reality of what you're looking at, not just deceiving others, but hiding it from yourself. Okay, here we are on Google Earth. I went through the effort that you should have done in your video of figuring out and documenting what you were seeing. Here's the beach where you did your video. I was able to go in and use Street View to match what I saw in your video with a spot in Benidorm. We have some taller towers. We have a lower block here and then a taller tower here. This matches what we see in this screenshot here. The taller towers, the lower block, and then again the taller tower. We've got some rocks coming down. We've got the paved area up above and the beach below. There are the towers, the smaller one and the taller one. There's the paved area, and there's the beach. So you are standing somewhere on these rocks. And I'm not sure if you're standing right down here or here. We do see rocks in front of you. Anyway, I'm within a few meters of your location. Now, are you standing up on the roadway? I don't know. You didn't document it. Are you standing right down here with your feet in the water? I don't think so, because we could see rocks. Now there's the platform, the cable ski platform, or whatever it was called. And I've drawn a couple of sight lines, estimating where you are and what you might be looking at. Let's go up and see this from the top down. Wherever you are standing on the beach here, or the road above, you're looking underneath the platform and you're seeing lights in the distance. Which lights? You say it's Playa de San Juan. Is it? Could be. Possibly. But it could be other things and we don't know. And you didn't check. As far as I can tell, you didn't check. You certainly did not include anything about checking in your video. Here's Playa de San Juan down here. That's about 20 miles away. Here's another town. It's 17 miles away. That's a difference of 3 miles. At this scale, 3 miles matters. It's also got a beachfront. It's also got tall buildings. Could be the lights of this town that we're seeing. We don't know. You didn't check. Both of them can be seen underneath the cable ski platform from the beach where you were standing. So which is it? Is it 20 miles away or is it 17 miles away? Now bear with me for a moment while I navigate through here. I always find it a little bit difficult to navigate in Google Earth, but I want to get a particular view and I want you guys to see as I'm trying to get to it so that you know exactly what I'm doing here. Okay, well, for a start, here is the tall tower and here is the shorter one that was lit up that we saw in one of these images at night. Okay, tall tower and shorter tower. Here we see them again, tall and short. There's the platform. We've zoomed in so we can't see those towers anymore. And here's a picture that was taken apparently on a different day. I think you mentioned being down there several times. So we've got a mix of observations. Actually, we're not looking at just one. We don't know anything about the time of day for either of them. We have to sort out that we've in fact got 2 observations we're looking at and not 1, because you didn't tell us, so we had to figure that out ourselves. Anyhow, what we see is the smaller of those towers lit up. We see 2 peaks here and then some smaller peaks. I'm going to try to find those in Google Earth. I always find it a bit difficult to navigate around Google Earth, but we're making our way here. I'd like to get lower if it will let me. Oh, well, looks like this is as good as it's going to get. So we see the 2 peaks here, and then we see several smaller ones off that way. We're actually looking underneath this, so we need to be further over this direction. Okay, there are those 2 peaks. They're just to the right of the platform. Now, the Google camera did not actually get down to the rocks down below, so we can't look underneath here. But we've got these to the right. Let's compare that to your image. Just to the right. Okay, we're getting close. And then we've got these peaks underneath the platform. I think we're pretty much looking a straight line. I think we've got it. I think you must have been standing right on the other side of the railing where this bicycle is. Right in this stretch somewhere. You're looking underneath. These are just to the right of the platform. So, this is where it gets interesting. You'll see that I've got 2 lines, 2 sight lines crossing here. This sight line goes to Playa de San Juan. This sight line goes to that other town we were looking at. Actually, let's try this. There we go. Okay. You see, the whole problem here is that I have to do all this. If you had actually documented your observation, definitively shown that we're looking at Playa de San Juan and not this area over here, you would have been able to make a much more powerful case for what you're seeing. The very fact that I have to do this means that I'm filling in the gaps that should have been a part of your observation. Right there, you're already on your back foot. You're already going to have to play a defensive game, if you want to think of it in those terms. You shouldn't be making it difficult for me to understand what it is you're trying to show me. You should be making it easy for me to see what you saw. But you didn't, and I think you didn't because I think either you don't know or you don't want to know, because if you actually do investigate more deeply, you're going to find out you're not seeing the lights on the beach of Playa San Juan. You're not. You're not seeing the lights on the beach of this town over here. You are, in fact, seeing lights up above. This street here has a ground elevation of 85 feet. And then we've got 10 to 15 story apartment towers around it. That puts, with an average of about 10 feet per floor on typical apartment building, about 3 meters, roughly 10 feet, which are about 100 to 150 foot tall buildings with lights on. We've got them on a street that's already at an elevation of 85 feet above sea level. So that's 185 feet to over 200 feet. That's in this town, this closer town. Here's another big apartment complex. Now this is closer down to the beach, but it's quite tall as well. It's going to have lots of lights. So now we're seeing that not only might we have been 17 miles away and not 20, we're not necessarily looking at lights. In fact, we're very likely not looking at lights on the beach, which I'll explain in a moment. Here again, we've got an elevation, a ground elevation of 90, and we've got 13 story. This is a 13-story building here. This one's even taller. There's a bunch of others that are quite tall. So we're again well over 200 feet to the tops of these buildings, and they will have lights on. So if you're seeing lights, if you were seeing lights on the beach of San Juan, you would also be seeing lights well above the beach on San Juan, and that's not what your video showed. The very best you've got is one bit of light down low. You're not, if those are beach lights, then there will be lights above those, which would be all those street lights from the streets above and apartment towers and all of that. We'd be seeing that as well, and we're not. So when you're looking across and you're thinking you're looking at San Juan, based on the shapes of these peaks here, and let me go back to get lower to the ground again. Based on the peaks that we saw, it looks to me like you're more likely looking at this town that's 3 miles closer. And you are very likely seeing lights from the streets and buildings that are a good 80 to 90 feet above the beach. Now we're going to take a moment and plug those numbers into the Earth curve calculator. If you don't trust the Earth curve calculator, then learn how to do the math yourself and do the calculations yourself. I am not going to take the time to do that, and I'm not going to take the time to teach you how to do that. I'm going to use the Earth curve calculator. But like I said, if you don't trust the Earth curve calculator, then learn to do the math. That's the view line, that red line. Those are the little peaks that we see underneath the ski platform. All right, there they are. Platform is just behind us, and we see on the right, trying to get as low as I can to the water without drowning here. We see on the right the same peaks that we see to the right of the platform, and then these are the ones we see underneath it. And you'll see that Playa de San Juan is off to the left, And our line of sight is to these peaks, which is the other town that's 3 miles closer. There are the two peaks to the right. There are the little peaks underneath the platform. Playa de San Juan is somewhere off in that direction, and we see no lights over there. We're only seeing the top of the landmass. That's all we're seeing there. These lights that we see underneath the platform, that's that other town. I shouldn't have to do all this work for you. That's the trouble. That's the biggest problem. But you're not doing it because you don't want to see what's actually there. You want to see what you wish was there. Am I not being nice right now? I'm not being mean. I'm being honest. This is what it sounds like to be honest. Okay, we need to look at some numbers because yes, numbers matter. And so here we go. Let's go over to the Walter Bislin's curve calculator. Okay, we're making our way over to the curve calculator here. And I have it set for miles and feet. Now we need to put the data in. Unfortunately, we don't have the data because you, Howard, did not give us the data because I don't think you collected the data because you don't think that numbers matter. But numbers do matter, and we're going to see how they matter. So, observer height, we don't know. You're standing up. Your toes are not in the water because we can actually see the rocks in front of you in your image. So you're standing back from the water. If you're about 6 feet tall, we'll put your eye level to about 5'8". You're standing back from the water at least half dozen feet, maybe more, maybe 10 feet. You could easily be 2 feet above the water. That will put your eye level at 7'8". I'm going to say it's 8 because it could well be 10 feet. I don't know how far back you are from the water, but it could well be more than 8 feet. I'll give you the benefit of the doubt, and I'll call it 8 feet observer height. Here I am doing your work for you, and you expect me to be open to your message. Okay, target distance. Is it 17 miles or 20 miles? We don't know. Based on what I can see from Google Earth, it looks to me more likely 17 miles than 20 miles. So what do? We'll put 17 miles. I don't need to give you the benefit of the doubt. You didn't earn it. Target size. Okay, let's go back to Google Earth and look at some of those elevations again. I'm going to get top-down view here, just to give us all a quick reminder. So there's where we are standing. There's that platform. We're looking under the platform. You're claiming that we're seeing Playa San Juan, which is the lower of these two red lines. That's down here. I think it's more likely you're seeing this waterfront here. And I think it's yet more likely that you're seeing lights that are on the streets above. The very fact that they're above and that we're only seeing lights, basically one row of lights, means that if we were seeing the beach, we would also be seeing the lights above. And that's not what your image shows. Your video does not show that. It shows only one row of lights down near the bottom. There's Playa San Juan. We've also got high ground above Playa San Juan. Elevation 90 feet, the ground level, with 10 to 15 story buildings nearby. So, elevation of the object. Target size, 90-foot ground level, 10-story building, another 100 feet. I'm going to call it 190 feet. And what do you know? We see something. From where we are, we see buildings. We see the buildings. And mind you, this is with zero refraction, which is not natural conditions. So I'm going to plug in standard refraction, and we see yet more. Now we don't see all the way down to the bottom, which means that we would not be seeing the beach. We've got 96 feet hidden. However, we're not seeing the beach in your image either. We're seeing lights. Because it's nighttime. We're not going to see even if it were possible to see the beach, we wouldn't see the beach at night. We're seeing lights. So if you want to show us that we're seeing the beach, you need to go back there during the daytime on a particularly clear day. And you need to get your camera out with a good zoom lens on it so that we can zoom in and actually see that we're seeing a waterfront and not the mountains behind and the towers, apartment towers. So what can I say? The data you didn't provide that I had to piece together that matches your images, your videos, is entirely in conformity with the globe Earth. It works, according to the globe, just fine. Now we can repeat this. I'm not going to take the time out to do it, but we could repeat this. This is something you should do, you know. You, Howard, should do the same thing now and pick these peaks here, because we're seeing some peaks. This must be the little group to the right of the platform, and then we're seeing some higher land masses. I'm not sure where they are. Perhaps this up here. I'm not sure. I would encourage you to do that. Pinpoint where these things actually are. Figure out which peaks these are. Seems to be something off in the distance there. That is probably the high ground behind Playa San Juan. Note that we see no lights there. However, we do see lights here. And then behind that, we see some peaks. One more quick thing I wanted to check here. We've got the target distance set at 17 miles because I'm fairly convinced that the lights we're seeing are actually that town that's 3 miles closer. However, for good measure, let's check 20 miles, which would be Playa San Juan. We still see it. What we see is the tops of buildings on the high ground a few streets up from the beach. We're seeing about 45 feet of building. This says 190. That's the target height. We've got 145 feet hidden. So we're seeing about the top 45 feet or more of those tall buildings. Some of those buildings were taller than 190 above sea level. So yeah, we could perhaps on a good clear night using a really good camera with a powerful zoom actually see lights of Playa San Juan, and what we would be seeing would be lights higher up on some of the taller buildings. Totally possible on a curved Earth under standard refraction conditions. If the refraction conditions are stronger than that, we'll see even more. They're not very often less than that, but even if they were low, we'd see it. So there you go. Even Playa San Juan, the upper parts of the town, the lights on the tops of the buildings could possibly be seen. I'll reiterate though that when you study the peaks in Google Earth and the view line from the shore past that ski platform, looks to me like we're seeing the other town. A few closing thoughts. Yes, Howard, nice is nice, but what we really need is more honesty. Your observation basically lacked any sort of documentation at all. I had to piece the entire thing together myself based on some very poor quality video of a few little lights taken at night under conditions that made them very difficult to see. It appeared that it was actually two separate observations, but that wasn't stated by you, nor were any details given as far as the time of day, the time of year. You made a claim that you can see the lights of Playa de San Juan from Benidorm, but you really provided no supporting evidence at all. And examining what material you did provide, I found that it looked much more likely we were seeing another town that was 3 miles closer. So I would have to say this is a poor showing on your part. Now, if you can take this video in the right spirit, you could learn a lot from it, and you could go back there and do a series of observations, paying attention carefully to what you're doing, gathering data, and I would recommend doing it several times. I'd recommend also, if you go out there, for example, one day, that you do 2 or 3 observations on that same day within the very same time frame, within an hour or so. One right down close to the beach, another up on the roadway, and then perhaps another from 1 or 2 stories up, if you can get into one of the buildings across the street, you know, if there's a balcony or something. You do it from several different elevations. And then you do it on several different days when viewing conditions are different. Do all of that, and you have the start at putting together something useful that can actually tell us something about the world. But if you don't do all that, it's because you're hiding from reality. You don't want more information. You want information that reaffirms what you've already believed. So which one is it? You trying to understand the world, or are you trying to protect your preconceived notions of it? That's enough. This video is a half an hour long to debunk 2 minutes of video by Howard. I've probably given it far more of my time than it deserved. And I probably won't be doing another one on Howard unless he responds to this one positively. But I hope you all enjoyed it. I think that there's some good material in it. Have a great day, everybody. Bye-bye.